Everybody, welcome to What's Up Wednesday. This week, I want to address common myths about working in the safety and health profession. And the reason I bring this up is that I get calls from people quite regularly asking what the profession is like, whether it's worth entering. And we actually have an apprenticeship program called the Certified Safety Specialist Apprenticeship Program, in which we bring in people with little to no safety experience. We get them education, we get them on the job training, and at the end of about 4,500 hours of field training, they become certified as a safety specialist. So, when we look at the profession, what are some of the common myths? I picked out 10 that I want to talk about. The first one is safety is just about following the rules. It's about compliance. And I think any of us in the profession know that this is totally false. There is a compliance component since we must follow rules, we must meet OSHA and state standards. So there's a component of it that is about following rules, but really safety, as we know, is about much more. It's about system thinking. It's about risk management. It's about analyzing human behavior to design safer workplaces. And it's really about culture. And ultimately, injury-free cultures are not compliance driven. They're very proactive. Second myth is that safety professionals are the no people. I've heard this so many times. If I go to the safety professional and I ask for something, he or she is just going to say no. And I think that that is completely false. I think safety professionals in general have become very collaborative. Those crusty safety pros of old, I don't see them as much anymore. I think a lot of them have retired out. But modern practitioners, I think, tend to be problem solvers who generally collaborate with engineers and operations and management to find really creative solutions to drive safety and productivity. So myth number three, you don't need technical knowledge to work in safety. I think we know that's not true. There are aspects of the profession where maybe you don't need a lot of technical experience or knowledge, but those are not higher level safety roles. Those are monitoring roles. It's okay for, I think, for some professionals to have very specific technical skills. Let's just say they do a lot of confined space entry work or a lot of work in fall protection. They may not need to be subject matter experts on everything, but generally speaking, in the profession, regardless of kind of what you do, you need to have technical expertise. And I think that the one piece of advice I give to any safety professional is constantly learn, constantly focus on continuous education, do everything you can to increase that technical knowledge because it'll only benefit you and help you climb the ladder. The next misnomer or myth is that safety is reactive. And I think in the past, there was aspects of that. Everything was based on lagging indicators. You had an injury, then you focused on the reasons why. And now I think we tend to focus more on leading indicators. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about every business and every company across the spectrum because there are still some that are very reactive, but companies who get it are not reactive. They're focused on, predicting potential risk based on things they're measuring now. And and ultimately they're they're focused on much more than that compliance component. Number six, the job is boring and bureaucratic. Now, I would say that safety can become a little bit monotonous depending on how people look at it. If you're doing really, really well and everything is going very smoothly, it may feel like there's not as much to do. But as I talked about in a recent What's Up Wednesday, I think it's really critical that we don't get complacent and that we identify opportunities for growth and improvement. We monitor, we evaluate our programs and our processes when things maybe slow down a little bit. And and I think that that data analysis is really what can drive our growth forward to get better and better. If we get complacent, the job is going to get boring and it doesn't need to be bureaucratic. It should be collaborative. Number seven, safety pros don't influence decision making and business decisions. At one time, I believe that safety and loss control in general were looked at as a cost center. meaning that it's costing us money to do this stuff. We don't make any money off of our safety effort. And I think that's changed today. I think that educated leaders realize that limiting risk and eliminating loss results in more profitability. So, generally speaking, I would say that senior safety professionals tend to have a seat at the table with the C-suite. And if they don't, they should probably look for an organization where that opportunity exists. Um, Number 8, anyone can be a safety professional. I think there's some truth to this, but it is a myth. And the reason I say I think there's some truth to it is some of the greatest safety professionals I've ever met kind of fell into safety. Maybe they didn't start out their career working in the safety profession. Maybe they were a firefighter. Maybe they were a superintendent. Maybe they were a plant manager, and they really liked this field of study and they decided to pursue it. But the reality is that, becoming a safety professional, even if you're an accidental professional, requires you to get some training, to get some education, to focus on continue learning, maybe get credentials, BCSP credentials, maybe get a degree. So, while anybody can pursue this profession, it takes work and it takes effort to become credible in the profession. Number 9, zero injuries is unrealistic. Now, I know I just filmed a What's Up Wednesday recently on this whole idea of zero injuries being a goal, and I think it's achievable. As I mentioned in that, I think it is achievable, but you can't you can't put everything on that goal. If there's an injury, it doesn't mean that you fail. And the reality is we shouldn't focus on zero injuries as a goal. We should focus on the culture, the behaviors, and the things that lead to injuries. And again, not those lagging indicators, as I mentioned earlier. Finally, the last myth, safety and productivity are opposites. I'm a I'm in extreme opposition to this. I think that they're interrelated. To me, it's a trifecta. It's safety, quality, and productivity. Generally speaking, safe, quality work is highly productive, meaning you don't have injuries, you don't have accidents, and from a quality standpoint, you don't have rework. When you have rework, safety tends to go out the door, you're over budget, productivity goes down, profitability goes down. So to me, there's an interrelationship between those three. And companies who tend to focus on safe, quality work tend to be highly productive and profitable, where those who focus on production tend to be less safe and have quality issues. And sometimes I know in construction specifically, quality issues and rework can end up resulting in as much as 30% of the budget of a project. So put that into perspective. So hopefully that helps just a little bit on some of the myths of the safety profession, and we will see you next Wednesday.